Ever notice how, like, the same joke can have you, like, dying laughing 1 minute and then, like, fall completely flat the next? It's all about context, right? Well, get this. There are researchers out there trying to teach machines to navigate that very human world of humor.
It really is a fascinating challenge. Humor, I mean, it's so deeply intertwined with our understanding of language, culture, even personal experiences.
So where do you even begin with something like that? How do you break down something as subjective and nuanced as humor into something a machine can even begin to understand?
Well, yeah, for a long time it did seem like an impossible task.
Yeah.
But there was this sort of aha moment when researchers really started looking into the underlying structure of jokes.
Okay, so unpack this a little. What do we mean by structure here?
We'll take, for example, like the classic setup punchline format. There's this inherent element of surprise, right? What we call incongruity resolution. The setup leads you one way, and then bam, the punchline takes this unexpected turn. But at the same time, it still makes sense on some level.
Like, why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything.
There you go. You see, the setup there, it plays on this expectation we all have, that scientists, they should trust atoms, right? And then boom, the punchline hits you with this unexpected but kind of logical twist. And it's that principle, that interplay between incongruity and resolution. It became like a key focus for a lot of those early computational humor models.
And that's where Goofer comes in.
Exactly. Goofer, which stands for Generator of One-Liners from Examples with Ratings. It was a real breakthrough in the field. It uses something called metrical schemas, which I know sounds complicated, but think of it like a bunch of joke templates, like, why don't X do Y? Because Z. And Goofer learns how to fill in those blanks, the X's, Y's, and Z's, with words that fit the pattern and make a brand new joke.
So it's basically analyzing tons of existing jokes, figuring out what makes them work, what makes them funny, and then using that knowledge to build new ones. That's incredibly clever.
It really is. And it's not just limited to Goofer either. Researchers have also developed models that can generate these witty headlines, making even like the most boring news sound at least a little bit amusing.
That's wild. So we've got AIs crafting puns, we've got them writing headlines. Are we going to see a robot headlining at a comedy club anytime soon?
Well, not quite yet. As impressive as these early models are, there is still a pretty big difference between mastering wordplay like that and truly understanding all those nuances that make human humor so complex.
Right, because humor is about a lot more than just words on a page. It's about context. It's about culture. It's about shared experiences.
Absolutely, and that's where things are even more challenging for computational humor.
It's like that joke I told, about the pigeons in New York City. I told it to my friend who grew up in this tiny little village in the Alps, and it was a total flop. He didn't have the same like reference point.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Humor relies so much on that shared understanding, on all those unspoken cultural cues. Take sarcasm, for example. It hinges on you recognizing the difference between what's said out loud and what's actually meant, right? And a lot of times that relies on just these really subtle cues, like your tone of voice or even
Yeah.
your facial expression.
Which, let's be honest, is hard enough for us as humans to get right sometimes, let alone program that into an AI.
It really is.
Yep.
And that kind of leads into a really fundamental challenge in computational humor. How do you teach an AI to grasp all those subtle layers of meaning, those unspoken rules about what's funny, and like, especially in a given context?
Yeah, because it's like, okay, you could feed an AI every piece of data in the world about like what words are typically used in jokes, but that doesn't mean it understands why those jokes land.
Exactly. It's the difference between recognizing patterns, which AIs are great at, and
Yeah.
truly understanding like the meaning behind them. And that gap, it becomes even more apparent when you consider just how much humor varies across different cultures. What might be hilarious in one culture could be completely baffling in another, or even worse, it could be offensive.
So how do you even begin to address that? Can you program an AI to be, I don't know, culturally sensitive, to like get the nuances of humor in different societies around the world?
That's the million-dollar question. That's what researchers are really struggling with right now. And it's not just about teaching AI to recognize different languages. It's about like instilling a deeper understanding of cultural values, social norms, historical context, all of that.
Wow. So we're really talking about like pushing the boundaries of what AI can do, almost like teaching it to be culturally fluent.
In a way, yeah, you could say that. And that brings up some really fascinating questions about the very nature of humor and intelligence, really.
So where do we go from here? If teaching AI about humor means teaching it about culture and context, I mean, is that even really possible?
It's a massive challenge, there's no doubt about that. But I think what's really exciting is that researchers are starting to explore these completely new approaches. One that I find particularly fascinating is something called polymathic synthesis.
Okay. Polymathic synthesis. You're going to have to break that one down for
So
me.
imagine, like, instead of just looking at words on a page, polymathic synthesis is all about teaching AI to understand humor through all these different lenses: visuals, cultural knowledge, even psychology.
So we're not just showing an AI like a dictionary full of jokes. We're talking about like showing it a Charlie Chaplin movie and letting it analyze the physical comedy, the visual gags, all of that.
Exactly. Or think about, like, how memes use images and text together. It's often really clever and really hilarious. Polymathic synthesis is about helping AI to grasp those multi-layered forms of humor that we as humans just kind of get.
That opens up some seriously wild possibilities. Are we talking about like AI comedians that can tailor their routines to different audiences, even across cultures?
Potentially, yeah. Imagine an AI that could not only, like, tell a joke, yeah, but also actually understand how that joke would land in different cultural contexts, adapting its delivery or even like the content of the joke itself to be funny but also appropriate.
That's amazing. It's like we're taking this thing that feels so uniquely humor, and we're using it to like build bridges between people.
And that's what I think is so fascinating about this whole field. It's not just about building funnier machines. It's about using humor as this, like, window into the human experience, into what makes us laugh, you know?
It really makes you think if we can teach AI to understand something as complex and as nuanced as humor. I mean, what does that say about the future of artificial intelligence? It's like we're not just teaching these machines to process information, we're teaching them to understand what it means to be human.
Right, exactly. And who knows, maybe someday we'll look back and we'll laugh at how we ever thought a machine could never get a good joke.
It definitely gives a whole new meaning to the phrase artificial intelligence, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of computational humor. It's a field that's both hilarious and thought-provoking. And who knows what the future holds. One thing is for sure, it'll be anything but boring